Welcome, everybody, to Hamilton Week. Today, we are discussing the Federalist Papers. Welcome, Jacob.
Hey, Ruben.
Jacob, the Federalist Papers were written by John Jay, James Madison, and of course, Alexander Hamilton. And what is this about? Why are the Federalist Papers something people should read? And how are they related to Alexander Hamilton?
Well, why they should be read is because it was the defense of the Constitution. It was written by Alexander. The Federalist Papers were written by, as you shared, Alexander Hamilton, John Jay, and Madison. The Constitution was written by Madison. He was called the father of our Constitution, although, of course, he had help by all the people who were there in Philadelphia when it was being written in 1787. But why people should read it is because it really gives you a good clue of what the document's about. There were people who were very upset about this because they liked the articles, or they actually liked more states having a lot of power. This new document didn't give states as much power as the previous document. So this is a situation where there were two sides. They're called the Federalists and the Anti-Federalists. And these documents, these articles are being written, and people are reading them throughout the country. And guess what? There was another series of articles being written by the Anti-Federalists, and usually it was penned by someone called Brutus, and they talked about how terrible the Constitution was. So why this was great, again, Ruben, to answer your question, it's because it gives us a clue on what's in that document, and there's a great defense for it. And all three gentlemen, especially Hamilton, since he wrote most of them, he wrote like 51 of them, I think they do a good job in defending that Constitution.
That's a very critical point. It's defending the Constitution. It's putting themselves on the spot. God bless Alexander Hamilton. He took the lion's share of the Federalist Papers.
He did.
And he sat down and he wrote furiously. And he wrote all the time. In the musical, which we'll review tomorrow, there was a question of, how does he do it? How does he write so much? Because he was passionate. Well, how does one become passionate? You read. Yeah. And you read and you read. And one of the things, before you introduce the first article, the first essay of the three that we're discussing today, one of the philosophers that he cared about was a man named Montesquieu, a French philosopher that I really like. He's fun to just sit back and read and just let it wash over you. And so what do you think about this quote, Jacob? A nation may lose its liberties in a day and not miss them in a century.
Wow.
One day, but it takes a while, but eventually they won't miss them at all. Okay. And then maybe after your...
that was a heavy one.
I'll give a few quotes.
I think that could work today, though, that quote, Ruben. I think people might even say that today. Say, hey, maybe what you're missing today, in 100 years, you won't even know you had it. You don't even care because it's gone.
And that, of course, that makes us want to preserve our freedoms as much as possible. So, okay. What's the first one you want to
there are so many, and to pick them was difficult. 51 is one of my favorites. These are ones I teach when I've taught AP government. This one has, as we shared before, this is a time period where people were fighting for state rights. Jefferson was probably may have been against the Constitution if he was in the country. He was in France. I say that because he's such a big state rights guy, although eventually when he becomes a president, he all of a sudden becomes a very strong central government guy, right? It matters when you're in the White House, I guess. But so this first one, number 51, is dealing with taxes, right? And in Article 1, Section 8 in the Constitution, it says that, the federal government is the one in charge of taxes of that are coming into the country and going out of the country. I'm missing the term in my head right now.
Immigrants?
No. I'll think of it in a second. But imports and exports, right?
Oh.
And so that being said, people were concerned about that because, wait a minute, states had that power before, but that was the problem before the Constitution was written. States were getting all this money on taxes, and the federal government wasn't. So now the federal government, according to the Constitution, saying, "Hey, we're going to get our money here, and this is how we're going to get our money." And then, of course, and then Hamilton is arguing in this Federalist paper that, hey, the states can tax, and they could even tax in this area of exports and imports if the federal government allows it to. And so Hamilton is quietly, gently just reminding the states, yes, you can tax this. And this is not saying you guys cannot tax. It's just that we have power in this area of exports and imports. And so there were definitely quite of anti-federalists, people who were against the Constitution, who were speaking out on this one.
So this is related to Alexander Hamilton's concern for the power of the central government to remain intact and to not just sort of disperse into these individual rogue states that can very easily turn into lawlessness, right?
Oh, yeah.
Because this was one of Hamilton's projects, and I should say even his paradoxes of how do we have liberty but also the rule of law. Okay, I like it. Is there anything else that you want to say about that?
No, I think that it was a concern, and I think you shared it well regarding that. There was that prior to the Constitution, you did have 13 different states collecting taxes. They had 13 different currencies. So this was a way of Hamilton saying, "Hey, we don't want any of that anymore. That caused a lot of confusion. Let's let the central government take care of this piece." And especially when you're doing exports and imports, you're dealing with other countries. You don't want 13 states doing that. It causes a lot of problems. So yeah, I think that's pretty much it with that one.
Before you go to the next one, I have a quote for you from
Please.
the great Montesquieu, the man who inspired Hamilton. You ready?
I'm ready. I'm listening.
It is not the young people that degenerate. They are not spoiled till those of mature age are already sunk into corruption.
Wow. This guy is, yeah, I could see why Hamilton and Jefferson took this guy's ideas and put them into their own documents. Without Montesquieu, maybe we don't have the three branches of government.
When you sit back and you read Montesquieu, you just think, oh, this man consults kings. So it all makes sense. It's like wisdom from the gods.
Yeah.
But anyway, let's go on to the next one.
Yeah, Federalist Paper number 78. This one discusses the judicial branch. There was fear under the Articles of Confederation. There was no judicial branch or executive, really. It was the legislative branch that was the sole power of the country. That caused a lot of problems. But with this, Hamilton's arguing that, you know what? We need a strong judicial branch to balance the other two branches. And they will have the power of judicial review, meaning they are going to look at the Constitution when they make their decisions and refer back to it when they make their decisions. Say, hey, according to Article 1, Section 10 of the Constitution, this is why we made our decision. So they're not just saying, hey, I think this is why I'm making the decision, but they're referring back to that document, which is called judicial review, and saying, this is why we're making our decision. And this really gives all three branches some power, because they can also throw out laws that are pretty bad that Congress will write. And they'll say, hey, that goes against the Constitution. We're going to throw that out. And so the funny thing is that the Supreme Court didn't even really see that they had this power until 1803, when the Supreme Court under McCulloch versus Madison said, you know what? The judicial branch does have that power to review the Constitution when they make their decisions. I'm not going to go into that case because it's a long one, but they did get that power, and people realized it even after 1803. This is big, Ruben, because now we have three branches that are equal, and thank God for Hamilton to bring it back up in this document, Federalist Paper number 78.
Yes, I think that he was very concerned about the judicial branch. He mentioned at some point in the Federalist Papers, I think that particular article, about how it was important that the the judges or the judicial branch were understood their duty, and that they were almost, I don't know, I forget how he put it, behaved properly, or that they, right, they were of exemplary, and that there should be few of them, and they're, and that they seem to be the most, I don't know how he put it, but that they were the less evil of the branches, because they were not developing laws; they were just interpreting them. They were giving their judgment of them. So he kind of had an affection, maybe, for the judicial branch, and it just kind of gives me, it kind of harkens me to the Old Testament and God's big concern when the Israelites appointed judges, that they chose the right ones, because they're so influential. I think when the final book is written about Trump, I don't think either side would probably disagree with what I'm about to say. But if he's good or bad, it's on the basis of the judges he chose, and he chose quite a few. And I'll just leave it at that. That's going to make some people very happy and other people very concerned. But
I'm glad you shared that, because Earl Warren was picked by Ike, right? Dwight Eisenhower. And he was a Republican governor of California. And when Eisenhower picked him, he says, great, we got a conservative on the court. Warren becomes one of the most liberal judges of all time. And I think Hamilton will be okay with that, because if we're now talking about Federalist Paper number 81, which he talks about that, where he shares that, hey, you know what? They should be free of politics, right? They should serve a lifetime, because that will keep them away from having to owe their allegiance to a political party. And I think that was smart. 81 also deals with the whole idea that there are going to be different courts, not just the Supreme Court, but there'll be an appellate court, district courts, and they'll have their jurisdictions, even though the Supreme Court really has original jurisdiction. But he mentions, you know what, they're really only going to focus on cases that deal with some state issues and government positions that are questionable, and maybe their dealings, but pretty much everything else will go through the district and then to the appellate, and then maybe finally get to the Supreme Court. So he does also shares that there's importance of the state courts, and that there will be state courts, and they will be listening to state issues. And then here he argues, this is where the Montesquieu comes in too, I think, Ruben. He argues for the three branches and that they should be separate, and that that the judicial branch has an importance in this, and they have a leg, and because they will be a branch that, unlike the other two branches, can serve for life. And as you know, Ruben, we've had some judges that served a long time. We just had one who just retired, right? Justice Breyer. And we're going to hear a lot of commotion this summer about his pick, Biden's, but I don't think too much, but we'll hear some, because of course there's always, they go into people's background, but they also want to make sure this person is equipped to handle some of these tough cases that will be coming up in front of them.
Okay, before you go into the next article.
Actually, that was it. That was the third one.
Oh, we did 3?
Yeah.
Oh,
that was fast, huh? I was good.
I somehow missed one, somehow.
Oh, 78 bled into 81. I'm sorry.
You were supposed to stop after 78.
Oh, I apologize. I was so excited.
Because I was supposed to give a quote from Montesquieu. Here's one. There is no nation so powerful as the one that obeys its laws, not from principles of fear or reason, but from passion. So, thank you, everybody, for tuning in. Hamilton Week continues tomorrow, so tune in. And we'll see you next time, everybody. Bye-bye.